Welcome in live, PhillyVoice.com sports. It's our NFL draft show. We are going to be live with you right up until the Philadelphia Eagles select tonight. And there's a lot to talk about with our team, of course, and everything else that's circling, centering around the draft, the first round. We already have rumors. Aaron Rodgers wants out. Mac Jones isn't going to be drafted by the Niners. How everything impacts the Philadelphia Eagles tonight. We have you covered. And we, not me, look at that. Jimmy Kempski. Jimmy Kempski has taken time out of his busy night leading up to covering the draft to spend a couple of minutes with us tonight. What's happening, brother?
I didn't even know the Mac Jones thing. Can you fill me in on what happened there?
Okay, so the books, you know me, I'm the degenerate, and I always look at what the odds tell me.
Okay.
So the odds have significantly dropped for Mac Jones to where he's no longer even the favorite to be taken at the third pick. It's now Trey Lance.
What was he before and what is he now?
He was minus 200, and I think now he's at like plus 150 or 200.
Okay, so it's still possible.
There's movement. Yeah, there's movement. There's movement.
Okay.
Yep. But look, that's aside, right? Because I don't think though, if somebody, let's say, goes at 3 or 4 that we're not expecting, does that impact the Eagles?
Well, it's better for the Eagles if Mac Jones goes 3, because if he doesn't go 3, he can further than 12.
Right.
So it's better if he gets picked because it's one less player that they are, like they're unlikely. I mean, they're not gonna take him. So they're happy if he gets picked 1 through 11. If he doesn't get picked, then there's some other player that will get picked instead that they could have interest in. So that's bad news for the Eagles if he doesn't go 3.
Is it going to be awkward for you if we look into our respective cameras and not at each other? This is like the era of social distancing right now. Because
I will not look at you anymore, Eytan.
I'm sorry.
I'm sorry. I didn't know you were that big time. I won't make eye contact anymore.
No, this is not like
my deepest apologies.
Who was rumored on tour where you couldn't talk to her, right?
J-Lo? I think it was J-Lo.
I think it was Katy Perry.
Okay.
Yeah, where it's like you can't even make eye contact. That's not me, okay? We trust me. We need more from you than that. Now, let's look at the realistic possibility, though, that they actually make a trade. And I guess everybody believes that they're going to trade up, that's still a likelihood. And I'm sure that the door hasn't been slammed shut with what you've been hearing.
The Eagles are going to trade up?
Yes.
So I don't know about that. It all feels kind of smoke screeny to me. Like, I think they'd be happy if other teams traded up ahead of them, for example, for like a quarterback, for example. Like, I know there was like a slew of reports that came out yesterday, like all at the same time, that all of a sudden the Eagles are interested in Justin Fields. So that felt like a smokescreen to me because they want him likely to come off the board before they're picking at 12. So again, that's another player that gets taken that isn't one of their, likely primary targets. As far as like trading back up, the logic of that, it's tough to see because they traded out of the 6th pick, obviously, back to 12. They got like a good return on that. Obviously, they got a 2022 first-round pick from the Dolphins. They could certainly trade back up, and they wouldn't necessarily have to trade all the way back up to 6. They could trade up to 7, 8, 9, whatever. And the cost to do so would, of course, theoretically be less than that first-round pick next year to do so. So, I mean, yeah, I could see if they really like the player, but who would that player be? Like, for me, I think the only player worthwhile going up to 7 or 8 or whatever would be LSU wide receiver Jamar Chase. But I don't know that like I would necessarily want to go up for like one of the cornerbacks in this draft, like Patrick Surtain or J.C. Horn. I feel like would be very unlikely for them to trade up. I think if they were going to trade up, it might be for that some camera movement here.
It's a live show here. And now Hal, who is charge of. Oh, look at that! That's beautiful. I was about to rip, but also take him off the hook. How difficult and temperamental that stand is. Man, can I hire you as an engineer? I apologize.
But I think what people are getting at is they could trade up for a corner because they want to be able. I think the logic is they want to jump the Cowboys, who are picking at 10, who desperately need corner help. So that would be really the only logical position that I would see them trading up for. But for me, like a Patrick Surtain isn't that much better of a prospect than who would likely be available at pick number 12, whether that be like a Jalen Waddle, whether it be Devontae Smith, J.C. Horn, for example. Like, what are you giving up to move up that high? Are you giving up like the second round pick? Are you giving up your first round pick next year, maybe getting something back in return, like a 3 or 4, something like that. Anyway,
well, it mitigates a lot of what you got to move out of the top 10 in the first place, right?
Yeah, of course. Yeah. So, I mean, they did that so early in the process too. I mean, they did that weeks ago, obviously, and that's a little bit out of the ordinary that you take a trade out of a spot like that so early, before the draft. But I think that there's actually a possibility that they move back because what you might have is like a number of prospects that they find appealing at 12. And if they make a modest move back, say to 15, like the Patriots, for example, our team that's rumored to want to move up, they move back to 15 where New England is, and they can pick up even more picks, whether they be in this draft or in 2022, then I think that makes a lot of sense as well. But yeah, I mean, there's been a lot of speculation. There are reports all over the place, whether it's going to be trade up, trade back, stay put. So I guess we're pretty much covered on all three fronts there.
Let's look at one area, though, that I think is plausible for them to make a trade. And I wonder, I don't know how realistic it is, but stay put at 12, right? You've already done your work. You've moved back. Begs the question, why the hell would you move from 6 to 12 if now you're going to leapfrog two teams that you knew ahead of time you were going to be behind? But what about trading back in tonight? What about taking a guy at 12, if it's a corner or wide receiver, or maybe if it's a Rashawn Slater on the board, with the plan to move back and address what I would think, Jimmy, would be cornerback if they do move back in late in the first. Because
so trading up into the back end of the first round,
right, and trading it back into the first round to get a second first round pick.
Yeah, so I think that the general consensus is that if they take a wide receiver in the first round, they're going to take a cornerback in round 2. If they take a cornerback in round 1, they're going to take a wide receiver in round 2. I don't necessarily agree with that. Like, I think pretty much everything is on the table because, I mean, frankly, the roster stinks. Like, from top to bottom, like they have needs across the board. And I think a really underrated need. I mean, you can look at obviously the depth chart and you can see how bad off they are at corner and receiver for that matter. But I think at defensive end, you have a situation where Brandon Graham is aging. You have, and then the other two players that are worth playing, Derek Barnett and Josh Sweat, are both in contract years, still young players, but they're going to be costly potentially next offseason. So you don't know how that's going to shake out, whether they're going to be on the team in 2022 and beyond. And they like to have depth in that position anyway, like a lot of depth in that position. It's a position where you need a lot of depth. And I think there's like a cluster of edge rushers that are going to be sort of at the back end of round 1 or maybe at the front of round 2 that are going to be worth taking in that area. And if there's a player that they if there's a player that they particularly like and they want to make sure that they get their guy, then yeah, I could definitely see them moving. I mean, they have 11 picks. Yeah. They have the most picks of any team in the NFL in this draft. They have 9 picks next year. So they are loaded with picks and ammo to move around the board. And I think that's actually going to be a common theme. Maybe not necessarily in the first round. Maybe they move, I don't know, but certainly in rounds 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7, they have the ability to move up if there's a player that they are specifically targeting.
I wonder, Howie Roseman has done a pretty good job in one area, even moving back to 12. Granted, you've taken some names off the board, Pitts, Chase, if they were ever in play at 6, and who knows, right, with the quarterbacks. But it seems like there are about 5 guys, and maybe it's 4, but it seems like there are at least 4, maybe 4.5, to throw the betting term out there. Guys, young men that Howie Roseman could draft into this organization in the first round, that even if it wasn't the first pick for a fan, they would still accept it, and it wouldn't take 24 to 36 hours to settle in. I'm not sure about Slater, depending on who's on the board, even though I think he'd be a good pick. But the 2 wideouts, the 2 corners,
yeah,
I don't feel like there's a wrong pick there.
Yeah, I mean, if they just stick a pick, then one of those 4 guys, like the 2 receivers that you're talking about, Jalen Waddle and Devontae Smith, with the 2 corners, Patrick Surtain or J.C. Horn, one of those guys is certainly going to be there at 12 if they just sit there. So it's kind of hard to mess it up, really. But who knows what they'll do?
You mentioned a mess up.
Yeah, you mentioned Rashawn Slater. I think that there's sort of mixed opinion on what he's going to be at the NFL level, whether he's going to be a tackle or whether he's going to be a guard. They don't have either at either spot. They don't have any obvious starting positions open, at least in 2021. So out of the box, we might not start. So first of all, it's boring to take an offensive lineman in the first place, but then also a guy that might not play immediately unless there's injuries. That's going to be a pick that people are not going to be happy with. But at the same time, you're looking at like a multi-year rebuild here. Like they're not going to contend in 2021. They're probably not going to contend in 2022. So I mean, they won the Super Bowl essentially because their offensive line was so awesome. So I mean, it makes sense to build up. I mean, it always makes sense to build the trenches both offensively and defensively. And you have a situation where Jason Kelsey is likely to retire soon. Brandon Brooks' time with the team is finite. It's probably coming to an end, not this year, but maybe next year. So you're going to have two interior positions open. I think like Jordan Mailata showed some things last year at left tackle, but there's still things to be proven with him. So if you think that Slater is a tackle, then you can play him there. But there's definitely there's spots along the line that are coming up. Maybe not necessarily in 2021, but beyond for sure. So it's like, and he's a really good player. So like I can understand why they might do that, but also if they do it, like there's going to be total unhappiness with the fan base.
I can't imagine. I guess let's see. Mac Jones is on the board at 12. The four skill guys are on the board as well, or maybe three, like 3 or 4. Let's be fair. Like Smith maybe gets taken, or Surtain is off the board.
Okay.
Right? And then from there, so let's look at this as a realistic scenario, Jimmy Kempski, right, where the draft board is starting to take form, and on the board at 12, you have Mac Jones who has slipped. You have 3 of the 4 skilled guys, and let's say Slater is there as well. They go Mac Jones. Is that even possible that they would take Mac Jones?
No, I can't see it because like the fact that like the 49ers like might take him like it's just wild to me. They gave up so much to get up. Like if they just had the 3rd pick already or something like that, and they're like, okay, well we just like this guy best, and we're just gonna take him because fine. Like the Giants did when they took Daniel Jones a few years ago at the 6th pick. They didn't trade up for him. But it's wild to me that he just doesn't offer much in the way. He might be a good player in the NFL, certainly a really good player in college, but he just doesn't offer much in the way of like just physical attributes that you really want at the quarterback position. But whatever, I can't see the Eagles valuing a guy like that with the 12th overall pick. So no, I don't think that's possible. But I do think that the scenario that you laid out would be a really good one for Philadelphia if there's several players that they're still interested in, and Mac Jones is there. And you have a team like the Patriots at 15, for example, that like need a quarterback. A little further back, you also have like the Washington football team or the Chicago Bears. The price of those teams, like if you're moving back to 19 or 20 or whatever, then that like they're paying like a super premium price to get up. But if you're talking about like the Patriots moving up from 15, and that you're still going to get one of your, one of those skill position targets, then yeah, I think that's a no-brainer to move back and continue to add draft capital. Whether that be in this draft or next year's draft.
Is there a quarterback? And what the hell, right? Let's play every single scenario out because we don't know, especially Aaron Rodgers wants out again, and who knows what happens. Is there a quarterback outside of the 2 that won't be there in Trevor Lawrence and Zach Wilson?
Right.
Is there a quarterback at 12 that you actually could see Howie Roseman saying, look, we can't pass up Justin Fields. He's in our lap right now.
Yeah, I mean, I think he's really talented. And then Trey Lance, I think he's very talented as well. But
another kid from North Dakota State in the 1st round.
Yeah, right. And actually, Fields, I think, mirrors a lot of the same traits that Carson Wentz had. Like Fields has a really good arm. He's a better athlete than he can run around. He like runs guys over. He's a big guy. He's more accurate, I think, than Wentz. Some of the bad similarities that he has with him is that he'll just sit in the pocket forever, and he holds the ball for a while, and he get away with that in college because he's so big and he could shake off those pass rushers against lesser talented teams. In the NFL, he's not going to get away with that. So, but yeah, I mean, I think he's certainly a really, really talented player. And if he were to slip in the ballpark of like 12, I don't think that's going to happen. Like if the Eagles really liked multiple quarterbacks in this draft, they wouldn't have traded out of the 6th overall spot. And there's also the report, of course, that they wanted to trade up to potentially take Zach Wilson of BYU. Ian Rappaport tweeted that they were trying to get up there, couldn't get up there to get him. And then he quickly deleted that tweet because somebody got in his ear and said, yo, dude, probably the Jets. It was probably Joe Douglas like, yo, dude, we're trying to trade Sam Darnold here. But anyway, there was that report. They were interested in that quarterback. But if they weren't able to get him, I don't think that the other quarterbacks like Justin Fields or Trey Lance appeal to them as much, or they would have sat there or tried to make a play to move up to 3 or whatever to get the next guy in line. So I don't really see that I mean, if they were to sit there at 12, would they say, okay, well, we'll take him at 12, but we also get that 2022 first-round pick for Miami, but we didn't want him at 6 without that extra pick? Maybe. It's possible.
Right.
Like, you look at the Ravens a few years ago, they did a weird thing where they took a tight end at, like, the 26th overall pick, and then they took Lamar Jackson with the 32nd pick, which that doesn't make sense to me. Like, the quarterback position is so important. If you really like a player, you just get them. So, like, I don't know, but yeah, it's a weird debate, the quarterback angle after they had moved back from 6 to 12.
I know, and it adds this weird dynamic in this thing tonight because normally it would be clear cut that you wouldn't even bring up anybody, even Fields, at this point. And Jalen Hurts, Joe Flacco, anybody else aside, the Eagles. And here's the thing: like, even if Jalen Hurts isn't the kid moving forward in the next 2 years, you still have to draft for a quarterback, even if you don't have that quarterback on here. And I know corners and defense is still, like you mentioned, this team has a bunch of holes.
Yeah.
But I wonder if there's, and I hate to use the term aggression, Jimmy, but I wonder if there's any less aggression on offense drafting in the first 2 rounds, let's say, and they defer to corner because they may not realize or believe that they have the quarterback in Jalen Hurts yet.
Yeah. So what's the question there?
I know. Sorry about that. This is like every 7th or 8th time you're on with me, I get that from you. I can't be like Capaldi here and build you up as this amazing guest here. I have to confuse you with my questions.
It's
I
okay.
apologize.
You're good.
So, no, I guess what I'm asking is Howie Roseman now going to look at the first round or two and say, yeah, this is a good, talented wide receiver, but we don't know if he fits with Hurts or even the kid that's not here.
Right. Yeah.
Therefore, they may defer to corner.
So, yeah, I think there's a couple different ways to answer that. I think when you look at the receiver position, just generally speaking, and Nick Sirianni actually answered a question about this. I don't think necessarily you have to fit receiver to a quarterback. I think just talented receivers fit any quarterback really. But in terms of what they already have at the receiver position, you have the X receiver position, you have the Z receiver position, and you have the slot. So they have their Z position covered in Jalen Reagor. He's going to be your Z receiver. He's going to be off the line of scrimmage. You're going to kind of try to get him free releases. They don't have the X receiver. So a guy like Jamar Chase would have been a classic X receiver, but that guy's got to be up on the line of scrimmage. So if you draft a guy like Devontae Smith, he's 166 pounds. So you have worries that he's going to struggle getting off the line of scrimmage against the bigger, more physical corners in the NFL. If you find that X spot, he's going to have to be up on the line of scrimmage where it's easier for those guys to jam him. So I think you got to factor that in a little bit. Nick Sirianni, I mentioned a minute ago, he said during a recent press conference that he's had X receivers of all shapes and sizes. T.Y. Hilton was an X receiver for him. He's 5'9", 180 or whatever it is. He had Dwayne Bowe, was 6'2", 220. So he's had different body types at that spot. So I don't think they're worried. I think the Eagles, they just have to get a guy that he can get open.
Yeah.
He can catch the ball and make plays. I don't think they have to get any more. I think it's just that simple for them. It doesn't have to be any more complicated than that.
That's a big ask, though.
It is, for sure. It's been a while.
I know you have to get going in a minute, and Matt Mullen, Evan Macy will take over on the stream, and I'll still be here as well as we're live right up until the Philadelphia Eagles' first pick. A lot of special guests will be joining us, not just Jimmy Kempski. Trust me, we've got other special guests beyond Mr. Kempski. Who do they take on your way out? What's your gut tell you? What's your reporting tell you? What do you want on top of all that? What's the formulated answer?
Yeah, so I think that if at least one of those receivers gets past 7, where Detroit is, you have 4 teams at 8, 9, 10, and 11 in the Panthers, the Broncos, the Cowboys, and the Giants. None of them need a receiver.
Right.
So I think that once you get past that 7th spot, somebody's still going to be there. I mean, I've seen the Giants have receivers mocked to them. That doesn't make a lot of sense to me, though. I mean, they just paid a ton of money to Kenny Golladay. They have Darius Slayton, who's already a very good receiver. They have Sterling Shepard. They took a flyer on John Ross. So, I mean, I don't see where another receiver fits in there, but people are predicting it. So, I mean, I don't know. I mean, there's
Devontae Smith.
Is it for the Giants?
Yeah,
I don't know what I'm missing there. So I guess it's possible, but I do think a receiver is going to be available for them, and I do think that'll be Devontae Smith.
How much do you think they haven't paid Daniel Jones yet?
Okay.
And I wonder if this might be the final year in which they're like, look, man, we're giving you training wheels.
Yeah.
We're insulating you with bubble wrap. You're getting a tailback. You could throw the football to back. I mean, I wonder if but you're right, to put the stock of Devontae Smith at the receiver position when you've already put so much money into it. I mean, at that point, you're basically saying if Daniel Jones isn't it, anybody could step in and play quarterback.
Yeah, he's got talent to work with for sure. I mean, the offensive line isn't great, but they have a ton of skill position talent, and he had a rough year last year. Like he was almost as bad as Carson Wentz. It's funny that we're using him as like the low bar, but he's got a. You mentioned the contract coming up. He has to prove that he has to earn that contract. Essentially, you're right.
Do you think, and last one for you here, I'm just curious, how do we play or factor in New York and Dallas? I think New York, David Gettleman, I don't think that they're capable of doing something just to spite the Eagles, but
Right.
I wonder if Dallas still has that in them.
Yeah, no, it's funny. Like I know a lot of people are mad about trading back, specifically behind two division rivals and probably their two biggest division rivals, and the Cowboys and the Giants. From my perspective, I kind of looked at it like, who cares? Like,
Yeah.
what have the Cowboys done in the last 20, 30 years? What have 20, 25 years? And the Giants have two recent Super Bowls, but not really recent.
Right.
We're like a decade removed from those, and they're tied for the worst record in the NFL over. I think it's either the last 4 or 5 years. I believe it's the last 4 years. Tied with the Jets, actually, the two New Jersey teams. They tied for the worst record in the NFL. So, like, I wouldn't be making decisions based on the other teams in the division. Like if you're in a division with, like if you're like the Dolphins or the Jets or something like that, and you're in a division with like a Titan, like the Patriots, then yeah, I mean, you don't want to be helping a team like that. But who cares? Like, who cares about the Cowboys and Giants? Worry about what's best for you, not what might be sort of aesthetically unpleasing to the fan base in terms of picking behind those two teams.
Fair enough, brother. I know you got to get out of here. You have a busy night ahead of you. We'll pay attention at Jimmy Kempski on Twitter. Everything Philadelphia Eagles draft related for PhillyVoice.com sports as well. Thanks, brother.
You got it, man. Appreciate it.
All right. Look at that. And from one member of the site to another. Seamless transition. Look at that. You're off camera. Go. Yeah, you can do whatever you want now. It's Evan Macy here with us as I put the headphones on. And what's happening, man? You all set? You ready to go? You ready for Howie Roseman to draft a defensive lineman that you've never heard of?
I guarantee it. It's going to be someone nobody's ever heard of, and
oh no!
But more controversy means more people are going to complain, and it means more page views for our website. So go ahead, Howie, knock them dead.
Man, you are right now falling into the trap that I do every time that we have to do a radio show or the middle here on Philly Voice, where it's like you weigh out what's best for you as a fan versus what's best for you in the job that we do. And yes, you would go crazy if they did that as a fan, but I guarantee, as you said, you'd love it from a work perspective.
Oh, covering a game, you really root for whatever the quickest end to the game will be. That's really the best thing that could happen, because then I get to have my story bottled up and I get to get home quickly. But sometimes that's not the best thing as a fan, so you have to weigh it. And sometimes it's good whether the Philadelphia team wins or they get their butt beat and you get to go home early. Both are fine.
How do you see it tonight? How is this draft play out for the Philadelphia Eagles? Take it any way you want. They move up, some crazy scenario that you've already concocted in your head, Evan. How does it play out?
I think it's going to be chalk until the Eagles are on the clock, and I think that it's going to be very informative. I think to see if Howie Roseman really is sensitive to the way he's perceived and to the fans. If you look at the Phillies this past offseason, everyone wanted them to bring back Real Muto, and they did that. Everybody wanted Didi Gregorius back. They did that. They kind of ran it back. They listened to the fans. They spent a lot. I mean, it's not really working great, but they spent a lot of time focused on the bullpen. say what you want about the Phillies, they kind of did some fan service. So it'll be interesting to see if Howie Roseman goes that way. Is he going to pick one of those 4 obvious guys, the Waddle, the Smith, J.C. Horn, or Patrick Surtain, or is he going to put blinders on and ignore the cries from the millions of people who root for his team and take a defensive end named Quiddy that most people didn't know about until they saw a tweet about him this morning?
Yeah, and I think Rashawn Slater is also in this category of a player. And look, I think Kwity Paye could help this team. Like I think Rashawn Slater could help this team. But to your point, they're not the obvious picks, nor are they the guys that are easier to see an immediate impact on the field, right? You see Patrick Surtain knocking balls down, or you see Devontae Smith or company catching something, then, you're really on to, I think, the immediate impact that you see on the field as opposed to trying to wait and see what Slater or Paye do in rotation.
Without a doubt. And in a vacuum, that's fine. But if you look at Howie Roseman's recent first-round picks, he needs to have a hit. And I think, if he takes one of those projects or someone nobody's ever heard of, it's just going to kind of further put Eagles fans against him. There's Matt in his new house. What's up, Matt?
I wish. No, I'm still in my apartment.
Oh,
yeah. Okay. I wasn't sure.
Matt.
You haven't set up the new studio? Isn't that the first thing that gets set up in the new house?
It will be. It's the first thing that I have enough stuff to set up. But we'll get there. We'll get there.
Wait till you see this TV Matt's getting. We're going to celebrate every Super Bowl over there from now on.
Is you watching the draft on it, or is it not here yet?
It arrives tomorrow, gets mounted next Friday.
Ah, look at that.
Yeah.
Target date already. I'm sure you have it down to the second
Oh.
in which that thing arrives. All right, so we were just talking about this, Matt, as Evan was explaining his thoughts and how this thing could play out. And we'll balance the difference of what's great for us at the site versus what's great for us as fans of this team. Just how do you see it? How do you see it playing out tonight?
I think I caught Evan saying some of it. I would love it for it to be a nice, easy night where one of the main guys, the 4, I guess, that we've been talking about wanting to be there in terms of Horn, Surtain, Waddle, Smith, one of them being there and Howie just taking that guy. I would love for that to be what happens. It just seems like that's never what happens. Last year, everyone would say Justin Jefferson. He still got a wide receiver, to his credit. He just went with the other guy that everyone else was saying not to. So I would love for it to be something like that. But part of me more and more is thinking that he's just going to do something, thinking he's smarter than everyone else, trying to outsmart everyone.
There's a reason why conventional wisdom is called just that. I mean, sometimes you can't remake the wheel. Just take the guy who makes sense to take.
Yep.
That I'm looking at.
There you go.
Sorry. The one thing that I'm looking at here is that pick. Who is that pick? Is it Kwity Paye? Is it Rashawn Slater? I mean, I get the initial reaction is going to be, oh, man, or oh, bleep, or, worse. I don't think anybody's going to throw their phone through a TV, but who knows? Is there anybody other than Kwity Paye or Rashawn Slater that they could take that would elicit that reaction?
I was going to say that there's the outside chance that there's a quarterback in play, and then all bets are off. I know people who wanted a quarterback, and I know people who were so against them getting a quarterback that they were just like enraged back when they had the 6th pick and rumors were flying. So I that would be very interesting. If they took a quarterback, it would probably be the best job security for me, Matt, and Jimmy Kempski possible, because it would just be an endless stream of storylines and rumors and such. That would be very interesting. But I don't think there's – I don't know. Matt, you just wrote something about some out-of-the-box picks out there.
Yeah, I mean, I think even if they took Paye or Slater, I think Eagles fans could kind of talk themselves into those
Yeah.
picks. Like maybe they're not the exact guy they wanted, but they're guys who were mocked or projected to be taken in that 10 to 15 range, maybe 10 to 18, whatever, however you want to look at it. But I think Eagles fans could certainly say, okay, well, it wasn't the position we wanted, but they still got a guy, who has the credentials to have been taken there. What I worry about is that Howie takes someone who's projected to go in the late 20s or something, and just takes him way ahead thinking, oh, look, we outsmarted everyone and got this guy no one else was talking about. And then, preaches to us in his press conference about how they got incredible value and they would have been happy taking him with the 6th pick before they traded back, and all that good stuff that we'd be getting.
Are you telling me that they're going to trade back to like the mid-20s and draft Caleb Farley, who needs surgery again, and we're going to relive Sidney Jones? Because I would be really upset if that were the case.
I can't imagine them doing something like that. What I'm more worried about is that they take someone who would still be available then at 12.
Yeah.
That would be the nightmare scenario. Of course, you would never know. Once you take a guy, you never know how long he would have lasted had you not taken him. But yeah, that to me is the nightmare.
Well, that's a panic move, right? I'm sorry. What was the other one?
No. Yeah, you're right. Yeah, did you say that would be a manic move?
Panic move.
Panic move?
Yes.
Yeah.
But manic works too.
Yeah. It would make us manic, that's for sure.
I'm so sick of the talent that the Eagles have brought in the 20s. I mean, the guys that they brought in, they're Rieger, jury's still out on him, but Andre Dillard and Derek Barnett, like the guys in the middle of the draft that they've been taking in the first round that have just been they haven't been NFL starters. It's like, get a no-brainer NFL starter. Like, get somebody who can get a spot on the depth chart tonight. And that's really what the goal should be with this pick, honestly.
And then that was part of what upset me about them trading back from 6 to 12 was like, one of the guys you take at 6 is almost certainly going to be an impact player. And it shrunk that margin of error that was there for missing on the player. And now, I don't know, now that doubt starts to creep in about whether or not they'll wind up getting the right guy. But like we've been saying, I think if one of those 4 guys, the 2 cornerbacks, the 2 wide receivers, I think you can't go wrong with either of those 4. And then there are plenty of other options. Please don't take a quarterback. Please don't take a quarterback. Although, like you said, it's great for our jobs. So.
Are other fan bases as terrified as Eagles fans? It's like, they're probably going to end up taking one of those 4 guys, and it's going to be all these column inches and worries and rumors shed for absolutely nothing. I mean, we're so used to it. Maybe I don't know. I don't know if other fan bases know what this is like, to assume the worst and then to talk yourself out of it.
Well, and that's where I think it was the same thing that I put out earlier in the week, right, on the column, where Howie Roseman has essentially created bumpers in the bowling alley, right? The old bumpers that you would put up. You could still miss the majority of pins. Like, you could still only knock down one pin with those bumpers up there, but the gutter ball, I think, is out. The only gutter ball I would see, maybe to Matt's point about taking a kid who was rated like 28 or 29, but if he traded out of the first round altogether, then I think every single person in this city has the right to be beyond upset.
Oh, yeah.
There needs to be a strategy. I mean, not to go on a tangent here, but everything that went down with Carson Wentz, from when they benched him to tanking that game to him not wanting to compete for a job, and then whatever, amicably or unamicably, they decided to part ways, and then they traded him in the trade compensation, and then Nick Sirianni getting hired and firing Doug Peterson, and all the leaks from Howie Roseman, all of this stuff seems like it had absolutely no plan. It had no strategy. It just was random stuff that happened in a vacuum. And so I'm looking to see some kind of cohesive, coherent strategy, like a plan in place to compete in 3 years. I mean, maybe that's optimistic, but they're stockpiling these draft picks. Get a 22-year-old who's going to be a can't miss pick here. It's an opportunity. I mean, if they keep flailing and doing random stuff, I don't know how much more the fans can take. I know it drives me crazy.
You're right.
Over.
You're right.
Sorry.
That wasn't that long or deep of a tangent. I think that was right on point.
Yeah.
Way more than that. All right, so let's look at something else here. Another scenario where quarterbacks are falling, and forget the Eagles drafting a quarterback at 12, even at Fields, if that's available, which I don't think he will be. But if it's Mac Jones, for example, that fourth quarterback or fifth quarterback, if you will, somebody's going to be interested in him at 12. And I almost feel like as much as we're concerned about the Eagles trading back and how deflating that could be, I feel like at this specific instance, they're obligated to trade back. If New England is knocking on the door saying, hey, we want to move up 3 spots and give you fill in the blank, you're obligated to make that trade unless you desperately want, I don't know, Devontae Smith or Patrick Surtain if they slip.
I think that's, and I'll let Matt answer, but just to give you my quick 2 cents, I think that's Howie Roseman's like dream come true. He just having leverage to make a trade like that. That's probably what he's been dreaming about going to sleep, is the opportunity to get another first, to do something like that. So like I think the only sure thing is if a quarterback is on the board when the Eagles are, like, I think a trade is going down. That would be my bet.
Yeah, I agree with you. Howie's dream, and it was funny because you said that, we would all I would hate if they traded back. I would understand the move, especially in the scenario that you laid out there. But if I mean, it's funny because it's the same stuff I used to love when Hinkie would do it, and now if Roseman does it, viewed through that different perspective, it's all about like the GM who's making the moves, his history, what you think of that person. I would be down on that move. That being said, I agree. I mean, if Mac Jones is sitting there or quarterback X is sitting there and the Patriots or some other team are like, we want this guy, we want to move up to get him, and we're going to give you, depending on which team it would be that's moving up, it would depend on the package that you would get. But I mean, yeah, the Eagles, this is not a quick rebuild for the Eagles. So I guess in that sense, I am okay with them punting on some picks till next year if it's going to net them, high value picks, second, third round picks. I don't think they're going to get a first round for a team moving up 3 or 4 spots in the teens, but you want as many picks as you can get right now because you have holes up and down. We keep talking about quarterback or cornerback and wide receiver. They have holes up and down the roster that they need to fix. So the more picks they can get, the more holes they can theoretically fill, and it's going to take a couple years. So if you have to punt on some of those picks until next year, I get it. I at least understand it.
Do you guys think that it's odd? And I don't know, maybe I'm misreading this, but the reports, everything that happened with Doug and Carson, Howie and Jeff and Howie, these guys were way too hands-on with football stuff. Yet when it comes to the draft board, we've seen Howie move up, so this is not an absolute statement, but they trade back a lot. And I wonder if there's anything to that where it's like when it's not their MO and it's not their area of expertise, they're all over it. Hey, do this, do this, do this. But a lot more times in the draft board, they're waiting for teams to make decisions, hence even trading back from 6 to 12.
Maybe they're trying to win the draft instead of winning the pick. I don't know. Maybe it's not the best thing to look at the entire board. Just get that pick right. It seems like that may be a simple explanation for some of the mistakes they've made. I don't know. But I just
No, I was gonna say I think you might be honest with it. I think there might be something to what you're saying where they're trying to look at it as presenting this whole draft class to you as look at the body of work that we were able to get, as opposed to looking at these, our first, second, third pick are studs. They want to say, well, we got talent, we got value in the first and second round, and we got addressed this need, and we got, Donnell Pumphrey in this round who, no one was talking about, but he set the record for yards in college, and they want every pick to be this one that is smarter, and then they can present this to you as look at all these things we got, but really that there's nothing there. And that's the problem.
we're all draft experts. We all do fantasy football drafts, right? No, like
Yes.
think
Every
about
week.
it. You're on the board in fantasy football, and Pat Mahomes, Lamar Jackson, they're there. Do you pull the trigger and be the guy who takes the first quarterback and second guess it, or do you wait and then they're all off the board and you're stuck with a Matt Ryan? That's kind of like the thing where the Eagles are thinking, well, we'd be okay with Matt Ryan, so let's let everybody else take the quarterbacks and we'll get value by doing this other thing. And I just feel like it's I don't know. I kind of relate to it because I love fantasy football and I've fallen into that trap before, and that's like the Eagles' MO right now.
No, you're right. There is something to the whole element of fantasy football and how much, if it's Lurie playing it with Roseman or if it's Roseman convincing Lurie. I mean, we go back to the Asante Samuel comment when he was here for a brief period of time and saying the guys up top are playing fantasy football. And we kind of wrote it off like, all right, man, go out and tackle somebody. But maybe he was onto something way back then. All right. One thing to look at with the Philadelphia Eagles, a little bit in the backdrop, is number 4. It doesn't matter if a quarterback is taken at 3. Pretty much believe that the Niners are going to take a quarterback at 3. But I wonder now if Dallas, New York, if there's a team that's close to Philadelphia or maybe a team behind Philadelphia that jumps up to 4 and disrupts the draft board, maybe taking a player like we thought. If it's taking Chase earlier, then there's a run on receivers and all of a sudden Devontae Smith or Jalen Waddle are not there, or the same scenario happening with Surtain and the quarterbacks. 4 seems to be a pick on the move tonight.
You think the Falcons might move off that? Is what
I
you're
think
saying,
it's
and
pretty
not
much
take
inevitable at this point.
Isn't
I've been wrong.
Isn't that pick going to be Pitts or Chase no matter what, though, would be my question. If it's not Pitts or Chase, then, yeah, it definitely throws a hiccup in the draft. But I don't know. That seems to be unless it's a quarterback, I don't know what another team would be taking there.
Well, that would be the move up, yeah.
You'd move up for like Trey Lance. You'd move up to draft somebody at 4 to prevent him from getting snatched at 7 or 9 if Denver, something like that. Probably not 7, but 9.
Well, I think a team trading up for a quarterback specifically would be great news for the Eagles because that would kind of bump everything back. Like the more quarterbacks that go before the Eagles pick, the better, because that's going to slide that group that we've been talking about of 4 players back even further. And I think, if a quarterback goes 4, then Chase could still go at 5 if the Bengals are really that in love with him and really want to pair him and Burrow again. And I swear, if Pitts is on the board at 6,
yeah,
will be.
That might be the nightmare scenario for Eagles fans. That might be the one that drives people crazy because, oh my God, not only could we have had arguably the best flat-out player at any position in the draft, a hometown guy, and a receiver, nonetheless. Yeah, sure, he's a tight end, but he's more than a tight end. That would drive Eagles fans crazy, knowing that they could, and that's going to put the pressure on Howie even higher to not only hit on 12, but the pick they got in the first round next year.
Is there anybody else? Go ahead, I'm sorry.
Available. The Lions are trying to move off of 7. So this nightmare scenario where a quarterback goes 4th and everything tumbles. What if Pitts and Chase? What if you could have gotten one of them at 7? What if another team trades up to that one? And I think it was pointed out pretty quickly when this trade happened. But the fact that the Cowboys and Giants picked immediately before the Eagles, that's something bad is gonna happen there.
Is it also fair, though, to take away that the Eagles simply didn't care? And maybe that's a positive. I don't know. Hindsight's going to be 20/20 here, and we'll look back and see if Dallas or the Giants actively tried to sabotage the Eagles with whatever they do. But doesn't that move somewhat assume that Howie Roseman and the team weren't concerned about what the Giants and the Cowboys would do? Because to your point, Evan, they're really aware of the 2 teams in front of them when they make that deal from 6 to 12.
That's fair.
Yeah, I mean, there's two ways to look at it. There's either that way, which that would be taking Howie at his word that, in that press conference that he had where he said there's more than 12 prospects that we would feel comfortable taking with our first round pick. So yes, that would say that they don't care then. They know that one player that is up on their board is going to be available. The other way to look at it as Howie thinks he's smarter than everyone.
Yes.
And is moving back because the pick he plans on taking will still be on the board at 10, could still be on the board at 15 or 20. And so he's going to go at 12 where he knows he can get the guy that he wants who may not be as high on other people's boards and also get a first-round pick. That's the added buffer that Howie got with this pick or with this trade is that now some of the pressure's off because if this pick isn't the greatest, he can still kind of say, well, but we also got a first round pick for next year. So it's the combination of that's how he'll talk his way out of it. But yeah, I think there are two different ways of looking at that trade back is either they didn't care who they were going to get or they felt that the guy they were going to get was still going to be there at 12 regardless anyway, because no one had him that high on their board.
Here's a question for you guys. Would Howie Roseman honestly prefer to draft a 5-time, 10-time Pro Bowler in his draft slot, or to get a marginal starter, 20 picks with better value? Trade back and take a marginal starter to get better value on that player, or to take the no-brainer Pro Bowl player. I think
wonder.
it's value.
What do you think, Matt?
It's the value. That's all he cares about.
Yeah, well, I think there's part of the whole his job security thing, the way he stays close to Laurie and all that. To him, the thing that gives him better job security is getting that win, getting that player, that value, that look, I made this difference. Because when a team wins a Super Bowl, sure, Howie can say I put these players here, but the GM doesn't get as much credit as the coach and the players, right? So
Normally, although in this case,
right.
I think that's the opposite. The GM and the owner want all the credit for the Super Bowl.
Right.
That
would be a way. Yeah, that would be a way that he could take some of the credit is by saying, look at these, look at this value that I got on X, Y, and Z player. Problem is, in the first round, if you get value on a player, he should be making the Pro Bowl.
Yeah, that's a great question. And I wonder, especially now with dugout, Nick Sirianni's handpicked. There is this belief, you want to call it hubris, ignorance, whatever it may be, that they can develop everything from coach to player. So, yeah, I think this isn't even doubling down. I think to Evan's question, the answer would be absolutely the guy with the value that he can turn around and say, not only did we steal this guy later in the draft, look at the value that we had, but on top of that, we turned him from a marginal starter into a Pro Bowler. And when I say we, I mean Jeff and me. I don't mean Nick Sirianni or anybody else out there. So that's where yes, I think it's an ingrained mentality.
Yeah.
Which is scary, isn't it? Because how does that change? You could fail multiple times over, but if you still have job security, or if you're the person who owns the team and you're still doing that, I don't know how many times people can yell and scream on Twitter or call a radio show or tweet a TV person or respond to either of your columns and say, or Jimmy's, and say, enough is enough, and it works.
Yeah. Well, and also with Howie's job security thing, there is something to be said about you do want your GM to have job security because you don't want him drafting for his job. You know what I mean? Essentially, he's making these picks worried that he has to hit the right one or that he has to turn the team. You don't want him operating like the team has to be in win now mode in order to save his job. So in that regard, if he knows and has the job security to know that he's going to be here for the next 3 to 5 years through this rebuild until they're competing again, more than competing, contending again, you want that because then he's going to build. He's going to be able to come up with a plan that is more long-term than just thinking, okay, I better get this team, forget being 12-5, I guess at this 12-5 now, because there's 17 games in 4 years. I need to be 8-8 next year. I need to be 10-6 next year. I don't care about getting to the top. I just need to get to a winning record so I can keep my job. So if he's not managing like that, that's a good thing. But
we'll see.
I mean, to play devil's advocate for 10 seconds here, I think there is a legitimate point to be made that because of the pandemic and the limited number of football games that were played, I mean, how much did Trey Lance play? How many passes did he throw? I think there's a lot more of a gamble in a lot of the picks this year, especially later. So there might be something to him getting another first next year when theoretically we would be able to watch, everybody play 12 games in college and have better scouting and be more confident. So to that point, maybe he was the smartest guy in the room.
That's a good point.
Man, are you ready for a reality in which Howie Roseman is the smartest man in the room? After everything that he's been through publicly in this city, you talk about a victory lap. Oh, my goodness.
Well, I mean, yeah, but don't forget, he is just, 3+ years away from a victory lap. So, I mean.
Yeah, but to your point, I don't think it was looked at so much of a victory lap for Howie Roseman and Jeffrey Lurie. And I don't mean this in general. I just mean because I think the storyline was so unique. I mean, we had Nick Foles. We had the Philly special. It was the Patriots. There's so many layers to that Super Bowl where when you start to peel it away, you're like 4th or 5th layers in when you start looking at Howie Roseman building the team.
Yeah. Yeah. But in his, I mean, I've been pretty negative for the last half hour that I've been on here about Howie, but in his defense, he hit a home run with that team. I mean, he pushed all the right buttons putting that team together, even down to having Foles as the backup quarterback. So I'll give him credit for that. That team was great, perfectly put together, but everything he did after that has been quite the opposite. So,
yeah, it's amazing. Roger Goodell heading up to the podium, right?
Let me guess. Lawrence is going to be the first pick.
I don't want to give anything away.
Yeah, spoiler alert. Jeez, Evan.
Well, here's the thing. Right? The real shock, I think, maybe not even comes at 3. I don't think it's going to be Mac Jones. So if it's Fields or if it's Lance, I mean, the odds will tell you that it's Trey Lance at 3. But I don't know. I mean, I don't know where the intrigue really begins outside of 4. But even still, if Atlanta makes that trade to another team, we know they're taking a quarterback, right? So does the draft really start tonight at the 5th spot in Cincinnati?
I think it starts at 6, honestly.
6. So you have Sewell or Chase locked in at 5?
I have Chase at 5. But, I mean, it could go it could go the other way around. They could take the lineman. But I think they want to reunite Burrow and Chase, and then I think the interesting stuff starts.
Yes, at that point. Now, you guys, and I know that it's a little different because this is your job, so you're paying attention to everything as current as it can be. But if you can remove yourself from Philly voice mode and approach it as a fan, are you watching it and waiting for things to happen? Or are you locked on like Shefty and these other accounts trying to figure out who gets drafted 6 or 7 picks before the TV says so?
I have to know it before it's on Twitter or before it's on TV.
How funny is that? I was going to say, I can't remember the last time I watched a draft and was watching a draft.
Without Twitter as a companion?
10 year.
My wife hates it because we only have the one TV in the living room right now. And so we'll both be sitting there watching it and I'll have my computer up and she won't. And, I'll be like, oh, look, the Bengals just took Jamar Chase. And she'll be like, how do you know? They still have 8 minutes left on the clock. Well, I saw it on Twitter and she's like, come on.
And nobody's ever wrong. You notice that? Like Shefty's never wrong when he's like 4 picks from now, the Philadelphia Eagles will take it. It's like, oh man.
Oh, can that happen? Give us a good start. I would be fine with that. I mean, that's the thing. It's just about getting things done 30 seconds quicker than the other guy. And even if that doesn't really make a huge difference competitively, I don't know. There's a competitive nature to doing something like this, and just getting it up 30 seconds quicker gives you such satisfaction that I couldn't imagine not having Twitter. Yeah.
But think about that. You can't watch anything else like that. Couldn't watch a TV show like that. You couldn't watch a live game like that, right? It's only the draft, at least in my head. Maybe I'm missing something obvious. You couldn't watch Westworld or Game of Thrones that way. Hey, this guy, Aaron Paul's about to kill this guy. And you're like, whoa, what happened?
Could you watch the Oscars that way?
Award shows.
Right, because that's, I mean, in essence, that's what this is.
Yep.
It's, they're just reading off of the thing. So that, I think, is why you can watch it like that. And then you feel smarter than the people on TV because and they don't yet. But yeah, no, you could never watch an actual TV. Yeah, I could never watch a real TV show like that. That would be like reading the Wikipedia page of a TV show and then watching the episode.
And I don't know how people do that.
I've watched like MLB drafts that were like in the 27th round, and I've just had the draft tracker on, and I've just looked at it, researching, waiting for a Phillies pick, looking at where the kid went to high school. If the Oscars was just a list of the winners that came out, that'd be. I just want to know. I just like to have the information.
It's fair. I think that there's nothing wrong with living that way, especially in the small areas, small pockets that it's acceptable, like award shows and the draft here. Jacksonville is, I guess, using the time on the clock. Why?
I never understood that. I never understood that.
Have they been told?
I would think the draft should open. The draft should open. Goodell should say, "Welcome to the draft. The first pick is X." They should have to, like, if the draft starts at 8, they should have to submit their pick at 8:00.
Yeah, I think so too.
All right, I'm going to have to boot you too. All right, I'm going to have to boot you too.
All right.
If it makes you feel any better, it's for not the mayor, but the mayor of Philadelphia. And that's the great Ron Jaworski. So see you, Evan Macy, Matt Mullen. We appreciate this. Jaws, what a thrill, first off, to have a chance to sit down and chat with you on draft night. Look great, sound great, everything's going well for you, and thanks for hanging out with us.
Yeah, hey, life is good. This is a life-changing day for a lot of athletes. It's a very special day for a lot of these football players. It's very exciting to see draft night finally here. We're at 3 days to the draft. Teams are built right now. This is a crucial time for our Philadelphia Eagles. I can tell you that. With 4 picks in the first 84, there's a core of success for a long time.
This is the part of the football calendar where it's more than just, hey, Jaws, can I get an autograph? Or, hey, Jaws, can we get a picture? It's, hey, Jaws, all of that, and who are they taking? I saw you walking around earlier, and not one person let you walk by without asking who they're going to take. So you have to tell us at least what you think is going to happen tonight.
The draft is like a box of chocolates. There's this box of chocolates right there in front of you, and they're all good. But until you grab one and bite into it, you just don't know. There have been so many players that have been touted highly, became busts in the National Football League. Some players drafted in 8 rounds, a la Tom Brady, 199 in the 6th round, become the greatest quarterback of all time. You just never know. And that's what makes draft night, the first day of the draft, so really, really exciting. Day 2 and day 3, also very exciting, but you just don't know, and that's what makes it so enticing.
We have, as you mentioned, a really special night, and they've isolated it even more so in the NFL here with the first round. And the Eagles are smack there in the middle of it, a little higher up there at 12. I'm curious, though, just to take you back to when the announcement came and they did trade out of the top 10. What was your reaction, if you can kind of take us back? Were you shocked? Did you kind of expect something like that?
Well, we all know how he likes to move.
Yes.
And that's just a characteristic he has. He's done well with it in some cases, in other cases not so well. But I actually did like this move, moving from 6 to 12, 6 spots, picking up a first-round pick next year. I thought was a wise move. We have to be realistic about this football team, and I know it's hard, Eagle fans. You want to think next year we're going to be a Super Bowl contender? It's not happening. This is a rebuilding team. We need young players. We have salary cap issues. We've got to make the right choice on who we draft as an organization, which the Eagles have to get this right. But they need young players. That's the key right now. If they're going to build this or rebuild it, it's got to start with today's draft, tomorrow's draft, Thursday's draft.
There are a lot of
Saturday,
holes.
excuse me.
Yeah, no, you're right. I mean, you want to make sure that you use every single pick and every single day that you have available to you to fill these holes. And it doesn't really matter where to begin, Jaws, because it can be cornerback, it can be wide receiver. But I imagine that even at 12, where you've moved out of the top 10, there are going to be some really special kids with talent and promise coming out. Is this a scenario where you think Howie not necessarily can't get it wrong, but has a much greater shot of widening the parameters, if you will, and getting a solid pick? Even if he does leave another talent or two on the board, it's not going to be like we've seen in the past.
Yeah, there's no guarantee whatever pick he makes at 6 or 12 or 20, wherever they end up making this pick, that they're going to get it right. You just don't know. We'd have to redo the show in 2 years. You could ask me, well, what happened? Or, wow, what a great pick. We're still talking about Justin Jefferson from a year ago.
Right.
Pick over Jalen Reagor. I mean, it turns out to be a bad pick, but we all know, think back to last year. Oh, great choice. Obviously Minnesota didn't think so. They couldn't get that call in quick enough to take Justin Jefferson. They were surprised. Jalen Reagor is still a work in progress. We don't know how that is going to work out. But spinning forward to this year, the Eagles have to find a wide receiver that they can trust and can make plays for them. We have really struggled since 2017 at the wide receiver position, getting a player that you can trust, you can count on, and hey, just give me 1,000 yards. We can't do that. This is a draft that is very deep at wide receiver. You're going to start out, Jamar Chase is, man, I studied this guy. I was like, why did I look at anyone else? This guy's the best guy I've seen in a few years. Big, strong, fast. I mean, he fakes out his shadow. He's so quick. I think he's clearly the best wide receiver. You go to Jalen Waddle at Alabama, along with Devontae Smith. Two outstanding wide receivers in a great program, well-coached, disciplined, under Nick Saban. We all know he's got a lot of NFL coaches on his staff. They train guys for the National Football League. So there are 3 wide receivers. I believe if one of those wide receivers is available at 12, the Eagles will take the wide receiver. If they don't take the wide receiver at 12, I believe Howie will move down, because I think, and people I've spoken to around the league that are closer to it than I am, believe there are 4 corners in this draft that are going to be legitimate all-pro caliber corners. So I think you start getting Eagles move down, get to 19 or 20. I like J.C. Horn. He is a terrific corner, but Patrick Surtain is right next to him. So you got a bunch of guys that are really, really good, and you're splitting hairs between who you like.
Jaws, I can't thank you enough. We can't thank you enough here at PhillyVoice.com, PhillyVoice.com Sports, just for having us, for spending some time with us. I know you have a lot more important things to get to. So thank you, sir, and enjoy the rest of your night, and we'll see what they do tonight.
Well, thank you. I enjoy the process. Fun talking about it. Go Birds.
You got it. Go Birds is right. That's the great Ron Jaworski here. And as I mentioned, we have a bunch of special guests, and we're just going to keep things going here. This is like handing off the baton on the race here, and we go from one side of the football to another. And as we are joined here by the Axeman, Jeremiah Trotter. What's happening, Trot?
What's up, baby? Just the best side of the ball.
Yes, sir. Yes. I had no doubt you were going to do that, and making sure that the door was still cracked so Jaws could hear that on his way out. How you been, man? It's good to see you.
Good, man. I'm doing good. Just chilling,
How have you taken in everything over the last year or two with dysfunction and chaos kind of taking over from that amazing moment that you and so many who have played and bled for this team, I'm sure, were able to celebrate with the Super Bowl? How have you just kind of taken in the last couple of years, where it seems like it's been like 20 years since they won the thing?
Yeah, just taking it kind of like everybody else, man. You obviously want to see the team have success, but in the name of this game, you're gonna have some lean years, you're gonna have some bad years, and last couple of years have been rough, but hopefully tonight can be a step in the right direction.
You think it's still a desirable place to be here and play here, and there's so many players like yourself who stick around here, Jaws, right? Guys who are doing stuff in the media like yourself to people who have just made their home here, and I think that's huge for, I would imagine, right, as a current player to see that.
Definitely. I mean, we still have the greatest fans in the National Football League. I still believe we have the number one organization in the NFL. We have the best owner in the NFL, and obviously team is going through some tough times right now, but you know, we're going to get through these years just like we did a few years ago when we broke through and won the Super Bowl.
Trot, be honest with us. It's just you and me here and PhillyVoice.com sports, right? How mad are you going to be if they take a kid on offense?
Well, I mean, listen, obviously there's a lot of good players in this draft.
Right.
The receivers are very deep. The corners are deep in this draft. And at 12, I think they're going to take the best available. And we do need a receiver too. We need a guy that can stretch the field, a big time playmaker. But we also need some help in the secondary. You know, they could, like Jaws said, they can go after one of those corners. The corner position is pretty deep. And, you know, I'm a little biased, but, you know, I would like to see a middle linebacker, a certain middle linebacker out of Penn State. Carson, man, he's a real deal. I mean, I think he's a game changer. You know, guy that's 6'2", 6'3", 240, runs a 4.3. You know, he's a game changer. He can rush the passer also. And, you know, so they have a lot of options, a lot of ways they can go. And I'm just like you guys. I'll be sitting here waiting to see what happens.
It's got to be difficult, though, when you've got a new staff, everything has changed over, and you're a veteran in that locker room. Brandon Graham, right? Just identifying veterans who have been in this locker room and seen success, but also this changeover. So put yourself in a veteran's position right now. What are you telling younger kids, newer kids that have been drafted, or just maybe a kid that's been here a couple of years and has seen so much transition and change with personnel? What's like a message of consistency that Trot would give to the younger players on this team?
Man, just keep working. Just control what you can control. You can't control who the coach is. You can't control sometimes who your teammates are. You got to control yourself. You know, put the work in. You continue to put the work in. Good things that happen. And just keep grinding. You know, you can't worry about everything that's going on outside of the locker room. Focus on yourself, your family, God, you know, and you know, just the group of guys that you're going to war with every week.
Yeah, it's kind of weird how this thing ended, right? Like how it ended with Doug Peterson, how it ended with Carson Wentz, and you had a team that's now 3-4 years removed from the Super Bowl. But you're right in the sense of that sense of direction and that sense of goal is still here. And I think that even a culture, it probably won't take long if you're Nick Sirianni to establish it. So I'm not saying it's going to work or fail, but I feel like at the very least there's a blueprint to come in and establish your own culture.
Yeah, I mean, listen, we're a winning organization, man. We've been winning here for years. Right. You know, we don't believe in rebuilding. We believe in just coming out and just, you know, taking the players you have and we expect to win, no matter who's here, who's not, you know, who's not here. This town expects you to win. You know, it's a blue collar town. We've always been winners, and you know, it's going to be a lot of pressure on this young coach. You know, it's a lot of pressure playing in Philly because you know, fans not afraid to let you know how they feel, and players too. There's a lot of pressure on the players too.
You ever get a call? Hey, actually, you know, they're killing me. They're killing me out here, Tron. Can you put a tweet out, or next time you're on IP, can you just give me a shout? Like, you ever get a text from somebody? They're killing me, Tron.
No, I never got a text, man, like that. You know, so. But hey, I love the fans. I love the passion. You know, I always use an example like your big brother. You know, he beats you up, roughhouses you, but nobody else can do it. So, you know, the Eagles fans are the greatest, man. They bleed with us. And they just want to see us successful.
Was it as simple as, I mean, look, you know that you are not everybody stepped through and had the love that you had on the field. And there were things that you did on the field, like Doc and others on defense, where you know you track somebody down, you pop somebody instantly. That's going to connect with the fan base. What is it? And look, man, you can be as modest as I know you are, or you can humble brag, and I'll brag for you. But there is something different. There is something that separated you and Hugh and Ike and Doc and that crew, where there were plenty of people who have come through, even before you. And I don't want to totally date you, right? But even the guys before you, where there were always a handful of people that truly connected, and you were one of them. Do you know why that was the case?
Well, I'm not sure exactly why, but I try to be honest all the time. I try to be transparent, and you know, fans see that. You know, I tried to just. I looked at myself as a blue collar guy. You know, coming to work every day, living on the field every single game, play with heart and passion, and I try to get the fans what they come to see, and that's just leaving everything out there, and fans can see they can see through all the glimpse and glamour and kind of get a feel of who you are. I just try to be the guy that they can, that was honest,
Yeah, we love you for it, brother. We thank you as always. Anybody we should keep an eye on from Stephen F. coming out tonight, or maybe the next weekend?
Yeah, I don't know if anybody goes out to Stephen F. Maybe not tonight.
Okay,
maybe tomorrow.
okay, fair enough. Trot, we love you, man. Thank you so much.
Take it easy.
You got it, Coach. You could just take Trot's seat. That's fine. Yep, this is the live trade-off right here. It's the baton, and we go from the quarterback to the linebacker to the coach. And what a pleasure, what an honor it is to continue this tonight here at PhillyVoice.com Sports, joined by the great Dick Vermeil. Coach, it's a pleasure, first and foremost, and anytime I have a chance to listen to you on the radio or see you on TV, we all stop to hear what you have to say. So thank you for being a part of this tonight.
Am I on here?
Yes, you are. You are live.
Great. Well, nice to be here. Always great to line up with Jaworski. Hey, Vince Papale is here as well.
He is, and we'll chat with Vince coming up and to wrap up the night for sure. How have you approached these where no matter if you have a player that you've identified right there at the top in the first round to knowing how much time and effort it takes to mine the deeper rounds, did you have just a general approach when it came to the draft, Coach?
I did, and I had some NFL experience before I came from college back to the NFL, and I got to see some real good people do it. But you gradually develop your own process. What you have to do is develop confidence in the people that you have given responsibility. The first two jobs that I had 51% vote on personnel, but I didn't do 100% of the evaluation. I did 50% of the evaluation, always had opinions. But I was a good listener. When I was a good listener, I was a better drafter.
Is that right?
A couple of times I overpowered, and I was wrong, and I should have listened to the person that told me I was wrong. You only recognize the problem if you recognize it. If you recognize it, then not do it again.
Well, that
So
comes with
I
trust in
learned
the
to
rules.
listen to the people that spend 100% of their time in personnel, form my opinions, and if I agreed with them, I did. If I didn't agree with them, then I really discussed with them the inner linings of how they develop their thoughts and their processes, and I would go with them then because that's what they do all the time. I want to coach football too,
Right.
Yeah.
In those conversations, I wonder, and it seems like it's an exact science when you look at the mocks and you look at the metrics and you look at pro days to the combine. But as you know, once you get into the NFL, it's the exact opposite. It's so far from it. As somebody who's had experience on both sides and somebody who has had immense success in the NFL level, where is that disconnect? Where does that originate? Where you have guys that are scouting kids and know the NFL right up to coaching, and they make mistakes, but it's not because of a fan or somebody on the outside. This is months of mining and months of looking and scouting. Where does that disconnect usually originate from?
Well, you don't disconnect if you never do connect. Okay. Once you do connect, then you have to trust your feelings. You have to trust the reason that you did connect in the first place. And I had certain scouts for certain positions. When it came down to nut cutting time, I'd turn to him and say, "What do you think? This is your specialty." And he'd say, "Coach, I'd go with this guy." I would listen to him and go with him. I would go with it because that's what he did. And every time I asked that question in the past, he was right. You develop a level of confidence in his ability to give you the right answer. Then you, as a coach, if you have the 51% vote, then you look like you're right. But it really boils down to the people doing the everyday evaluation process and then trusting their opinion.
Howie Roseman, as we know, Coach, has been active, to say the least, in the draft, or trading up, trading back. How do you approach, just before we look at the specifics of what Howie Roseman has done, how do you approach that specific in the draft, where I'm sure the phone has rang at times and you've thought to yourself, yeah, that's a pretty good deal, but maybe you passed up on it. How do you approach the specific of the trade in the draft?
Well, when I had 51% vote, it was simple. I moved up from the sixth pick in the draft to the first pick.
That's right.
In 97, and drafted a Hall of Fame left tackle.
That's
Why?
right.
Because I think if you draft somebody that early, he has to project to be a Hall of Fame player. And it came down between him and an outstanding defensive lineman that I didn't like his profile at character level. Okay. And we took Orlando Pace because I'd watched him play in college for 3 years, in person broadcasting his games. I'd met his family. I'd been in the locker room with him for 3 years and visited with him. I knew this guy, and there was no way he was not going to make it other than injury. So we moved up to get him. We moved up when I was with the Chiefs to take a tackle up from a certain position to draft and move forward to draft a defensive lineman. All the recommendations I got, and I really liked it. And it was great. We got him. We moved up and got him. Sims. The trouble is he didn't come to training camp. Never one day of training camp. And we start the season. We're getting him in shape. We put on 20 pounds, and we wouldn't let him on the field until he reached his playing weight. First game he played it, he broke his arm. So that was a dud.
Oh, man.
And then the next year he got hurt. The first game, we've been playing like hell. He got hurt. So I don't know. It was easier when I came to Philadelphia. My first year, we didn't have a first, second, or third round pick. My second year, we didn't have a first, second, or third round pick. My third year, we didn't have a first or second. You know what happened? We made very few mistakes with the 5th, 6th, 7th, 8th, 9th, and 10th round pick.
That's beautiful.
Yeah, we really did.
I love it.
Fine football players.
I'm sure. Is it a lost art that how intimate of an understanding of who Orlando Pace was for you is that? And look, it's not a negative. We live in a hyper technological world now, Coach, and COVID and all the other things that factor in. But I wonder if that's a lost art for the most part with general managers and coaches that are identifying top talents, or maybe even in the second or third round.
Well, I don't know. I haven't taken a head count in the 32 teams. Who's making the final decision or who has the 51% vote? I don't know. I know the guy's won more football games than anybody else. Belichick, he's got more than a 51% count. Okay?
That's right.
Parcells is the Hall of Fame. He had more than a 51% count. Okay. If you study history, you usually can dictate what might happen in the future. But the trend is moved away from the coach having the final say. And I understand. And you can work. I worked in my third job. I didn't have final say, but it was still a good job. You work with people. But I always felt comfortable when it comes right down to saying who we go with that have that choice. But it wasn't all me. It was based on the confidence of other people.
Awesome. Awesome. We've got Vince Papale who's about to step in here as well. Coach, last thought for you, just the amount of quarterbacks. We might even have 6 when it's all said and done tonight. Are you surprised at all at just the heavy emphasis that was put on the quarterback position for tonight?
I think you're going to see this year in and year out. Because if you watch college football, that's all they do is throw the ball.
Right.
And some of these colleges are almost ahead of the game in coaching as they are in the NFL. These guys are coaching football. And they're developing these young kids to play extremely early. And there is not another Trevor, okay?
No.
He's unique, okay? He's unique. These other guys, it'll depend. The other guys after him, in my opinion, it'll depend on where they go. Sam was going to solve all the problems of the Jets a few years ago, right? And before him, it was another guy from the USA. Some places you go, you're destined to fail. And that might be the Jets situation. I don't know why, but they sure haven't solved the problems there. And they keep thinking they're going to by drafting another first-round pick. I feel sorry for those quarterbacks. I do. Quarterbacks, they're being victim or the beneficiary of the system and the coaches they end up with.
Well said, Coach. Thank you so much for the time.
Take care.
Enjoy the rest of your night.
This guy, he's not lost for words.
No, not at all. I'm going to ask Vince Papale one question and turn my mic off. All right, that's going to be the
Tom, what's up, man? How you doing, buddy?
Oh, I'm great.
Great to see you.
It's a pleasure, as
It's
always.
great to see you, buddy.
Mr. Invincible in the house tonight.
Oh, I don't know. It's so cool to be here. You know, I have great memories here, Eytan.
I'm
And remember
sure.
what I lived here when I was playing.
Is that right?
Yeah, right across the street there.
So this is home.
This is home. I used to run this job. I ran this golf course to try to stay in shape. You know, they
Is
were
that
kicking me out. Hey, this is a golf course. It's not a track.
Well, what'd you shoot here? I think that's what people want to know.
I shot the pigeons. That's what I shot.
There you go. There's a lot more, I guess, gratification shooting pigeons, right? I don't want PETA on us, but as opposed to, knocking the ball in the woods like me, for example.
Oh, my God.
How are you? You look great.
I'm feeling great.
Good.
Life is fantastic. I'm just living the
Look
dream.
at that smile. You got to look at the camera. Show everybody that smile. Right here.
Oh, that one there.
Yes.
Here, well, I'll talk to this camera. All right.
But, we just have Trey Lance, who was taken 3rd overall by the 49ers. Things are happening here with the draft. That was a little bit of a surprise. I think everybody expected Mac Jones, or a lot of people expected Mac Jones. What were you thinking kind of coming into this draft from our perspective, the local perspective of the Eagles already trading back out of the top 10, and just kind of seeing how you've been paying attention to our team, but also what you kind of expected or wanted maybe for tonight?
Well, I want somebody that's going to make an impact right now. I think that's what they need. I think the fans need that. It's been a rough year for Philadelphia, rough 2 years for Eagles fans, and the untimely release of Coach Peterson. So we'll just sort of
good way to put it. I like it.
And I have to say that I'm sort of a little bit out of the loop because I've relocated pretty much in Jupiter, Florida, and just came up actually here and then to do some stuff in Philly. But as I look at it from my perspective, is I just want to have that impact guy, whether it's a wide receiver, maybe the shutdown corner. I think our offensive and defensive line is pretty solid. I just saw Brandon Graham out there. I was so excited. It's the first time I really had a chance to meet him. I just love that guy. I'm so glad he's coming back. He's going to give us stability. And of course, Kelsey's going to give us stability. And who knows, I think they know who the starting quarterback's going to be, but they're just playing that game. But, more than anything, they need some defensive help. They really need that shutdown guy because the receivers have just been running us silly in the secondary. And I'd really like to see that crafty, swift wide receiver, with Deshaun gone now, Jackson gone, and Alshon gone. We don't have the deep threat. So, as Coach was saying, they're going to throw the ball a lot, and you want to stretch that field.
Yeah, this team feels, and I know you mentioned the untimely release of Doug Peterson. Jim Schwartz chooses to leave. Carson Wentz is pushing to get out. And at some point, you just look at a toxic situation. Don't have to point the fingers and blame somebody specifically, but it's just a toxic situation. Now everybody comes in. They're new coaches, and there's a new mess. But it still feels, and I'm going to appeal to you here, Vince, your story and what you had to overcome. But it feels like this team is in need of a talking to by somebody like you, somebody who can kind of remind people where the focus is and hard work, but also what it does to pay off.
Well, I'm there. I'll come back. I came back for tonight, and I'll be doing a great event, by the way, at the Elmwood Park Zoo for the homeless vets. So if anybody's around 4:30, stop in and say hi. But we really need somebody. Now you have the Brandons, you got Graham and you've got Kelsey, you've got a few of the other guys that are those leaders in the locker room, and they're going to really have to step up. I'm here. I'd love to have that opportunity to get to talk to these young men and these guys who call themselves Philadelphia Eagles, and not only represent the Eagles and the franchise in the NFL, but to represent the city of Philadelphia. And how important it is to fans like me, guys that would have given their left one, to be out there on the field and sit in the stands like I did, and then wind up down there on the sidelines for 4 years. And I think that could be mental to them. But as Joe said in our pre-game show we're having out there, it's definitely a rebuild. And we'll see how much Coach Sirianni is going to be able to deal with all the stuff going around. It's going to be a whole different ball game for him. He's got a young staff, and nobody's giving him a shot. And I love that, because they didn't give me a shot either. And I want to see this guy get the last laugh. And I'm closest to friends with Doug Peterson, and but I really am rooting for this kid, and I want him to succeed, more than anything. And hopefully he'll get that opportunity to do that, and they'll give him a few assets to work with out there, and see what he can do with it.
We hope so, and I agree with you. Where he hasn't given us, there was stuff in the press conference, but Doug Peterson, people were making fun of Doug Peterson because he didn't know how to use the headset switcher initially, or he didn't know how to use the windshield wipers on his rental car, and the guy wins a Super Bowl. And you would think we would learn our lesson, but we're focused on rock, paper, scissors now with Nick Sirianni.
That's the problem with social media.
Yes.
That's the thing, you know.
Yes.
Coach Vermeil probably, if he were asking him, you know, what's one of the things that he's so happy they didn't have to deal with when he was coaching back then was social media.
Oh my goodness!
Because it is, you know, for every play, and you know that it's trends, and you know that's something you have to deal with, and I don't know. You wonder how much of an influence social media has on the decisions that are made by those in the upper office. You know, I've never asked that question. Maybe next time I see Howie, I'll ask.
That'd be great.
Yeah, but hey, you know, I would love to have that opportunity to get in there and talk to the team and just talk to them, not so much about being an NFL player, but being a person that is so important to the city of Philadelphia and to the community and the impact that they can make, and what it takes to pull together as a team. We always say it takes teamwork to make the dream work. And you know, I tell you, when I go out and I speak and I talk about what's it take to be invincible, I take the wall that Doug Peterson had in his locker room about community and trust and tenacity and taking risk and all those kinds of things. And that's what I say it takes to be invincible. And it's a metaphor for football. You know, it's all about life. And that's what I like about it, you know, and we have to have well-rounded guys. And just to see Brandon out there, it was just so good to see a guy, you know, he's just so important and so valuable to the team. And some of the guys that, you know, Fletcher and, you know, the guys that are still around, they're just so important to not only the team, but also to the city of Philadelphia. It's really important to have them around.
You're right. And Brandon, I think, is probably the most infectious that we've seen. And it really across the four main sports. And it's no knock on anybody else. You know, J-Roll had a ton of personality, but Brandon Graham, he doesn't stop with the positivity. He's got a smile that stretches the room. And you relate to it right away.
Yeah, I mean, I saw him walking in, and everybody was so excited to see him, and he was just smiling for everyone. But he's that way when you come off the field, you know. I mean, you know, right. You see, I told him, one of the first things I said to him, I said, I'm going to miss you and Gunner. I said, you know, it was one of my favorite things in the post game because you would just let him have it, you know. It was just that was his nature. That's how cool he is, and he's a great father. He's a great spokesperson for the team. He's a great athlete. He's an all-pro, thank God.
Right.
And he's rich.
Yeah, that helps, right? That's not a bad thing at the end. So I'm curious now, as you used a term that Eagles don't use because they know what happens when they use it, although Jaws and everyone else like yourself who has played and follows the team has used it, rightfully so. It's a rebuild. Yeah. But Philadelphia, we don't like to hear that term. So, again, you are a perfect individual here to defer to the positivity, if there is any, in a rebuild year. I mean, how are we supposed to sit through 2 years now, Vince, knowing that this team is far removed from winning a Super Bowl? That's a tough question. I'm sorry to throw it on you, but you are the man of positivity and inspiration in this building.
Well, maybe let's do it this way with our new woke culture that we have, and instead of it being a rebuild, let's call it a reimagine.
Okay, a reimagine. I like it. Can we coin that phrase here? Can we trademark that phrase here on the show? We'll give Vince credit.
And we're gonna reimagine this team as being a Super Bowl contender. Hey, listen. You know, we've been through a lot of stuff, and, you know, they're really just going to have patience. It's as simple as that, and come up with a win or two or, you know, a few upsets. But I think more than anything, if they see things that are happening and they see energy and they see a team that's coming together and you know, the lack of discord, those things are so very important. So, but it's you fans out there, it's going to be tough.
Yeah.
And nothing on coach and. You know, it was tough for Dick Vermeil. I mean, Coach Vermeil, when he came in, 4-10, 5-9. And then we go to 16-game season, 9-7. Before you know it, here we are in the playoffs, you know, and getting knocked out. But he had a plan, and Coach has his plan, and hopefully he'll get a chance to execute it. I hope so.
Are you ready for this extra game now that they're adding on? Or it'll be 20 games before you know it.
That's pretty wild. We had 6 preseason games when I first came in.
How? 6
preseason
games?
That was pretty insane. But let me tell you, because it was those 6 preseason games, it was the 5th one or the 4th one that got you there. I played against the Dolphins and I had 5 catches in the first half, and that sealed the deal.
So nobody could ever rip the preseason again because they gave us Vince Papale.
Yeah, it was a whole different. it was a whole different thing back then. And Coach brought up something today, and it was difficult to sort of latch onto it, but I think, what you're going to find now because of the OTAs, people are, not going to the OTAs and everything's virtual and this and that. Fundamentals right now, I don't care how much you practice out there when you're with somebody else, where you're going against air. But the thing about when we were with Coach Vermeil is that everything was just thud tempo, it was contact. Maybe ground us down just a little bit, but boy, we were ready for the game. And fundamentally, we were so sound. And right now, you're going to see, I think, a lack of fundamentals in so many respects in terms of tackling and blocking and just doing some of the basic stuff because the OTAs were taken away and you can't do things and do team activities. And then, with a new collective bargaining agreement, it's like two-hand touch
Right.
in practice sometimes until you get into the game. And the only way, back then, the intensity for the preseason games with Coach Vermeil was so intense. But then when you got into a regular season game, you can't even believe the difference, how much different it was, and the energy level and just the hitting and everything else and the noise and the fans. But, it's going to be interesting, and fans are just going to have to get used to it. This is the new reimagined way to play football, and that's the way it's going to go. And the rules changes, and I don't know how. It's just too many breaks. Just let them play. Crying out loud.
Vince, thank you first and foremost. It's just a play. I love seeing you because the energy. You talk about Brandon Graham, you're the same way. The infectious energy, and I'll say this. Now I have 2 family members who have moved to Jupiter, Florida, and we don't hear from them again. So you better not be gone for good down there in Jupiter. It's easy to get lost down there.
No. Listen, we're actually we're moving into Queen Village.
Nice.
So we're selling our Cherry Hill house. That's why I'm up. I'm
nice
to get the house all packed up, and just going to tell Mayor Kenny when I see him out there. I said, keep an eye on my house. I'm at the second and fifth.
Love it.
Yeah, man. I'm Philly through and through, man.
It'll never leave you. We love you. Thanks, Vince. It's great to see you, and enjoy the rest of the night.
Oh, it's going to be a great night.
You got it. That's Vince Papale, of course. Mr. Invincible, as we bring back Matt Mullen. What a run that we just had. My goodness. Whew. Much better than the run on the draft board, what we had here. Always
I don't know how I'm supposed to follow that.
Amazing. Vince Papale, and now Matt Mullen back with us here. All right. I told you about Trey Lance, did I not?
Hey, you were right, but I told you the Falcons were going to take Pitts.
Yes, you did. I am shocked that the Atlanta Falcons did not trade back. Truly shocked.
I mean, he's such a good player. He's going to be so good, and he's so
a quarterback.
Who, the Falcons?
Yeah, well, you can't be this bad next year. They might have blown a chance. That's all I'm saying. Or maybe just a team that wanted. Okay, here's the thing. You're right on Kyle Pitts. There's no argument against Kyle Pitts. He's a special talent and could truly dominate in that position. But if you're the Falcons, I don't know. I guess I thought that there would be a team or 2 or maybe 3 that would give up a lot to move into that spot, and it's worth giving up Kyle Pitts for multiple draft picks.
Yeah, I don't know that there were going to be, that high in the draft. Teams usually only want to trade up for quarterbacks. So maybe there just weren't teams that wanted to trade up for a tight end. But I also think, look at that. The Falcons offense is going to be dangerous this year. They might give up 40 points a game, but Jones, Ridley, Pitts, that's some weapons for Matt Ryan. Even, he's not the quarterback he once was, but Pitts is also the kind of guy, when they do draft a quarterback next year or the year after, that he's going to be the kind of guy that you want to have to help develop a new quarterback. Yeah. Like that's just a sure weapon over the middle, on the outside, good hands, big target, the kind of guy who can really help a young quarterback develop.
Now, I don't have it up here because we're doing a lot of stuff live, but do you have the pick? I know the pick is in, but I'm sure the tweets are already out, right, for Cincinnati?
I have not looked at the tweets.
Because we're now going to get a really good glimpse of who's available at 6 when the Eagles traded back. And here's what's going to kill me. because the Bengals are not going to take a quarterback. We know the Bengals aren't going to take a quarterback. It's Jamar Chase. Evan Macy's back with us here. So this is what kills me, is the trade from 6 to 12 did not factor in this very likely scenario playing out, which is Justin Fields or Mac Jones or both of them falling. And I feel like if you stayed at 6, you might be able to get what you got and more off just the immediate need to trade up and steal like Justin Fields at 6, or maybe Mac Jones if some idiot thinks they could steal Jones at 6.
Well, that was always the biggest knock against this trade, wasn't it? Was when it took place, because people said you wait until draft night because you can maximize the value then. I think Howie was worried that maybe those quarterbacks would go boom, 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 and then his 6th pick would be as valuable. So, yeah, but the good news is on the flip side of that, it wasn't our nightmare scenario where Pitts and Chase or Pitts or Chase are sitting there on the board at 6 and the Eagles could have had them. Yes, they might have been able to get.
That's the only nightmare scenario?
Well, that was the one we talked about earlier. One of, I guess, several.
Right. But that's what I meant. That's what I meant. No, specific to that, what we talked about earlier, there wasn't any other player on the board that we would think this way, right?
I don't think so, no.
Straight chalk. It's pretty much how we expected it.
Well, now what happens at 6? The Dolphins are pretty much compelled to draft Sewell, right?
Depends on how
There's no way they take a quarterback.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't think so. But I guess you never know with the Dolphins. I mean, I think they go Sewell. I hope they don't go Smith. I mean, he's the guy I really want the Eagles to take. So I'm hoping he doesn't go here, but we shall see.
I got some stray hair here. Come on.
Wait, what's going on with your hair, Evan?
I don't like this haircut. Never again.
Oh. Why don't you just put a hat on? Yeah. We have a hat.
Funny, because when I play golf, I like to wear a visor, and it was windy a couple of days, and like this hair that it just starts blowing around. I look like my grandpa.
Unbelievable. All right, let's wait at least until the 6th pick comes in, so we understand who would be there or who was at least taken. I can't imagine that Miami does anything other than, I don't think that they take a quarterback. But here's the question. At what point do you start to see a team trade up and draft a kid like Justin Fields? We're now at the 6th pick, and I don't anticipate the Dolphins drafting him, but I wonder if a team is knocking down the door trying to trade up for Fields, knowing that they didn't have to move to 3 or 4 even to grab him.
Right. It might be a little more tempting now because it's not going to cost you as much to move up and get him.
Yeah, it could be 7. I would be worried if I'm an Eagles fan who wants Devonta Smith that he doesn't make it out of these next 2 picks.
Same.
Right. Where's the run right now? Is it wide receiver?
I could see Waddle and Smith being the next 2 guys. If there's no trade, it's either that or O-line probably.
The pick is in.
That would be the thing. Go ahead, Matt.
I think I would guess Sewell. I haven't seen it yet on Twitter. They might have told Kuiper and McShay and those guys not to tip the picks this year, because I have not seen that this year, like in past years, where before it even said on the screen the pick is in, there would already be tweets.
No.
I haven't seen any of that this year.
I wonder if they were told.
I think they were, because I don't see Rappaport or anyone doing it either.
Tried that in the NBA draft and it didn't work well, but maybe the NFL guys
still was scooping everybody.
Oh,
right?
Wow. Jalen Waddle.
Oh, there we go.
Do you have the pick?
Jalen Waddle.
Oh, there's the run that Evan was just talking about. And now we have a receiver that should have been there at 12, that was there at 6, that would have been a great fit. And look, I know it's hindsight, but would you really have been upset? Like, would you have said, oh, my God, the Eagles overdrafted Jalen Waddle at 6?
No. And now
No.
Yeah. There's no way that Chase is going to make it to 12 now. I don't see it.
Smith.
Sorry.
Yeah, no, I know, but I know, I
my receiver names. Yeah,
it's tough to see him sticking around that long now.
Yeah, that's really interesting.
This is wild. All right, any final thoughts? We have the draft board laid out now through 6. So we see who the Eagles could have taken. We see who would have been available for the Eagles, or maybe even a trade target if, in fact, they were looking about a 6 during the draft. So has anything changed? I still think, based on what we just saw with Waddle and Jamar Chase and the comment that Evan made about the run, Smith won't be there. So at this point, it's pretty much going to be, if Surtan's there, they take him, or Horn.
Yeah, or do they trade up for Surtain to try to get him? Before the Cowboys scoop him up. Everyone knows the Cowboys need cornerbacks. Maybe they jump ahead.
Yeah, this is a Howie Roseman special, because he's probably starting to plot his different options. Option A is to move up and take one of the guys they wanted, and option B is to move back because they're probably not going to get one of them. So we'll see.
All right, let's end on this note. Are you going to wake up Friday morning after it's sunk in? Are you going to wake up happy? Or are you going to wake up upset? There's no middle ground here. I think I'm going to wake up happy. I'll leave you with that thought. Eytan's going to wake up happy Friday morning after everything sinks in.
I'm going to wake up happy because I'm not going to let the decision that the Eagles make tonight impact my overall mood. That's what I'm going to do. So I'm going to wake up happy regardless of who they pick. But I don't know that I don't think I'll be happy about the pick. That being said.
It's a soap opera. It's the gift that keeps on giving. I mean, it's the town that I love. It's the sports teams I grew up rooting for. And now that my job is to be a gossip columnist documenting as the Philadelphia sports world turns, there's nothing that could happen that's going to disappoint me. I'm excited to see what happens next.
Awesome. All right, guys. Thank you. Appreciate it. Matt Mullen, Evan Macy, Vince Papale, Jeremiah Trotter, Dick Vermeil, Ron Jaworski. This has been one hell of a draft show, courtesy of PhillyVoice.com Sports, the NFL draft show. We covered everything, got you ready for the Eagles, and you saw how crazy this thing is with Waddle as the most recent pick. For everybody out there, enjoy the rest of your night. Go Birds, and thank you for watching.